What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 34 of Zipline, the official Super Interactive podcast. I'm Chris Roper.
I'm Jeremy Dunham. Today we're joined by guys. Hi.
Dudes.
Hello. Designers.
Hey.
Kevin Schmitt, our lead multiplayer designer, and Ryan Fedje, who's our core systems designer. Hey, guys.
It's Ryan's first time on the show.
It is.
Kevin, this is your third or fourth?
Third, I think. Yeah.
Third.
Yeah.
Many times.
You're catching up to Seth.
That's right.
Tied now.
I'm going to
maybe.
overtake him soon.
Right. Travis has been on a lot, too.
That's right.
Whatever.
Maybe
Yeah.
tied.
But we didn't mention it. Chris and I are the community team. That's what we do. In case you're wondering, just two random guys ran into you. That's what we do here. Chris, what's going on in the news?
Let's see. As of this morning, we released
First,
the...
before you get going, welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
You've been on vacation
Oh, yes,
for
congratulations.
Yeah, thank
you. Right.
New dad.
Yeah.
weeks. Again.
Again.
Well, again,
Two-time new.
Still again. But
guy.
still a dad, but
Yeah.
a dad again.
But I'm back. So a lot of this
Yeah.
news is news to me, so I'm just going to read off the paper.
That's right.
I don't know what's going on anymore. But as of this morning, we've released the SOCOM 4 beta patch, the latest one, the changes of which will also appear in the retail version of the game as our very own, as its own patch once it has been released. It's all sorts of stuff that you guys have been asking for, such as the camera being pulled back and the field of view being increased. Guns are more accurate for the first couple shots, and there's a bunch of other stuff. Check out the blog post that Jeremy's going to have to write to tell me what's in it.
That's right. There is a lot of really good stuff in there. A lot of stuff that Chris mentioned, plus the Zerg. They're much more powerful now, and the Protoss aren't quite as overpowered. Sony also announced this morning that SOCOM 4 isn't all you'll be getting when you purchase SOCOM 4 on April 19th, at least in North America. You'll also gain access to Insomniac Games' Resistance 3. Huh?
It's pretty good.
I want to applaud that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like it.
There we go. There we go. That's a plus. So look for it, much like we did with our own game in Killzone. Look for their logo on the front of our box, and you'll gain early access to Resistance 3. It'll be in specially marked boxes, which means pretty much all the ones that you'll see when they come out. Make sure that you pre-order it now because we want the money, and I'm sure the Resistance guys would appreciate your feedback when the time comes as well.
Now, speaking of betas, we have another beta going on very soon now, which is the SOCOM.com website beta. So over time, we've been rolling out a couple things, game information and stuff like that. But of course, we want to have a plethora of stats and all that on the site, which you can now, or when the beta goes up, which should be any time
It
soon.
could be now for all
Could be
we
now,
know.
yeah. Basically, when the moon's aligned, we're doing that. We have more than one moon. But the stats are on there. You have all kinds of heat maps, and you can look
We're
at
on Tatooine.
per weapon hit percentages and tons of stuff. You can look at a timeline of shots fired and kills over a period of time, and you can bring in other players in that timeline and compare yourself. There's all kinds of stuff you can do on there. We're very proud of what's been added there.
We're extremely proud of it because
yeah.
almost everybody in this room, worked very closely with the web production team.
Yes.
On the stats page, on what we track, on what we follow from the very beginning. So we're really happy that
Yeah, it looks really,
put it
really
together.
great.
Yeah.
I still remember a year and a half ago when you and I sat in a room and said, how can we make this cool?
That's right. I remember that too, yeah.
And then we drew up that terrible picture.
It
that
looks
awful.
a lot better.
And
But
that's
yeah,
exactly
it
what it
looks
looks
much
like.
better.
No, it's better now.
We just
Much
use
better.
stick
Yeah, it
figures.
looks really awesome.
Since our last podcast, we revealed 2 multiplayer maps with fly-throughs. I'm sure you guys saw it. Well, you guys helped make them. But as we said last time, we're going to be releasing videos of the rest of the levels as well, and that'll hit sometime next week. So look for that then. And we're also going to have the weapons post that I was bugging Ryan here for the stats on earlier in the week. So that's going to happen.
Which 2 levels did we do? The slums?
We did
the cesspool.
We did Cesspool, and then we did Valheim Express.
Yeah, those two. Those are 2 of my favorite maps. And some of the guys at PAX actually got a sneak peek at Von Heinz, and they loved it. And I think it's going to be one of our most played maps.
Now let's get on to this week's chat. So we're here to talk more about the beta. What have the two of you learned that you did not expect?
Well, number one thing is, so we have Assault and Battery and Port Authority, and during production, I always looked at Assault and Battery as my favorite map, or of those 2. But it seems like the fans are really picking up on Port Authority, which I was just kind of surprised because I always thought that Assault and Battery played better. But now actually playing in the beta with more people, I can see why people are liking it because they're finding areas of the map and using areas of the map in different ways that we still hadn't discovered. Like the other day, I saw somebody get up on top of this fuel tank, and I totally didn't know you could get up there. And he was laying prone and sniping people from that tank, and I was like, "Oh yeah, wow, that's cool." So it's cool to see that people are liking that map and using it in ways that we hadn't yet discovered
Which is
yet.
a good example of what the beta is for, to see what happens in that sort of organic fashion when people get their hands on it. because we can test it to death here, but we've got 100 whatever people in the studio, and they all play the same certain ways. And I know whenever I play a map, it's a lot of the same stuff. But when you get it out to thousands or millions of people, then that it changes the way that everything works.
Yeah, and they're picking up the game really fast, which is the other thing too. I'm losing my edge quickly, and there thousands of different tactics coming out, and so people are going different routes, finding different prone sniper spots, and yeah, so it's a lot of stuff is coming to light with how people play.
We've also gotten a lot of information on the experience progression that we have. That we've tuned some values based on that.
Like what?
Well, it's a little bit harder now to mod up to mod 5. So we found that people were getting there a little faster than we'd liked.
Yeah, so we've increased those points that it takes to get there, and the curve is still there, so you'll get some of the good stuff early. But to max out a weapon, it's a little bit longer. Even at PAX, we saw Ryan was at PAX with us, and we saw that by the end of the 3 days, there were a lot of Mod 5 weapons unlocked, and we still, it's good to have those unlocked, but we want a little bit more of a challenge to do that and really have people identify what weapon they're going to use and really pick a weapon and make that commitment and kind of feel proud that they made that commitment to level up that weapon to that mod level.
Another thing we expected people to do is to try to find as many exploits as possible to make them more powerful or give them an edge of some kind, be it on a leaderboard or in game. And one of the things that we discovered that not too surprising, but how quickly maybe they discovered is some clan challenge exploits that were discovered.
Right.
And that was basically. Well, we're not going to tell you, but there are some exploits basically in order for you to get more kills. But what have we done to combat that? Because that's also one of the things that we're going to have ready to go in the game on retail launch.
Yeah, so we've one of the things that we have in the game for the standard and classic mode are the merit systems, and that's basically rewarding your team actions that people do, like victory dances and buddy system and all the other merits that we have. So we've actually disabled those in clan matches because there were, like you said, there were just too many exploits that people were taking advantage of. It's easy to, I'll just say it's easy to really take advantage of these exploits, and we didn't want people gaming the system. We wanted those clans who are really in there for the challenge and really sort of self-policing themselves to have better visibility on the boards, and it's something that needs to be policed by them, but also as us as well. To make sure it's fair. Another thing we've done is we've limited the amount of victory dances you could do in a match because that was one of the biggest exploits. It's still there, but it takes a little bit longer to do, and you can only do it 10 times now. So I know that may disappoint some people, but again, it was an exploit that we had to address right away.
Another thing that we're doing in terms of addressing, because this is a question that comes up quite often, that we see on the forums is what are we going to do about people who do find exploits or might find a way to consistently bend the system. And I'll be honest with you, we are going to not allow them to play the game anymore. So if we do catch people trying to exploit the system over and over again, they're going to get a warning to begin with and say, hey, we know you're exploiting, don't do that. But if they continue to do so, then we're not going to let them play the game anymore.
Yeah, and we're still gonna look at all the data that's coming through, and if changes are needed and exploits are still found, we'll still address those things. But yeah, I think we're gonna put the hammer down if things get bad.
So we've been talking a lot about things that we have found that we don't want to be in the game. But what are some things that you guys have seen that you figure would work out well and that has been proven to be so from the beta?
Do you mean things that
like,
issues that have come up?
Well, no, not issues, but you said, hey, I think this is going to be cool, and then the community is really attached to that, and you're happy with how it's turned out as, like the map design, like you were saying.
What was one thing that you were convinced was going to work and be well accepted, and now that you've seen the feedback, you're like, aha, vindication, it was accepted and it really works?
I think going back to Bomb Squad again, it was one of the more difficult game types to create. It went through several iterations. I don't know if we want to get into that later or some other time, but it's a different game type, and it requires a lot of teamwork. And on a couple matches that I've played, people hear it over the heads. I try to stay quiet when I'm in those matches, and I just want to listen to the raw feedback, because as soon as you expose yourself as an employee, then it's going to change the way that people talk on the headsets. But hearing that raw feedback from people saying, wow, this is really awesome, and then classic Bomb Squad, a lot of people are really digging that. So that in itself was just vindication alone. I was really happy that turned out the way it did, and the community's accepting it, and they seem to really like it, so I'm happy with that.
What about you, Ryan?
Well, I'd say the addition of the mod system that gives you something to actually work for, and I think that's turned out well. That you can focus on a weapon that you really like, and that when you get to mod 5, you feel like you've earned something.
You mentioned that has been adjusted since then, to give people a little bit more to work for in terms of that. What from the beta have you seen that has, what else have you changed in terms of weapons? And so let's say you go on the forums and you see people are saying, hey, this shotgun's overpowered or whatever. How much does that influence things that you guys might look at into tweaking as the game goes on?
And I think a good example of this is actually the SMGs, right?
Yeah, the SMGs, we've made some adjustments to reduce their effectiveness at long range while still preserving their ability to just wipe somebody out right up next to them. So at longer range, you won't find it getting the headshot kills or the quick kills that it had before.
And that was a direct result of the community feedback.
Yep.
Through the beta. What are some other things that you're looking at right now as it relates to the weapons in particular that you're seeing come up, or some things that you might not have realized before? You said, we'll look into that and maybe make some more adjustments.
So the weapon knock while in scope mode was one of the big ones. We found that through the beta that it was actually significantly lower than we'd like it to be. So we've adjusted that a bit. It'll be harder to, you have to actually work to keep it on target at long range when firing full auto. And then the improved accuracy for the first several shots was the other big one that we did.
That's the big one, I think, is having more accuracy in the first few shots. And for those of you that may not be following this, is that the way that the old system worked is that circle that you saw around your gun reticle, didn't matter how early in your cycle that you fired, the bullet would land somewhere within that circle. But now with the new update, the first few shots, and it varies depending on the weapon. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it does.
But the first few shots are much more accurate, pretty much dead center or close to center as soon as you fire in the beginning, and as long as you're keeping single fire, burst fire. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, and if you, it's kind of more of a rate. So if you do like a single shot over, multiple single shots, but they aren't like right after each other, you'll still keep that accuracy of right on. But if you go into like single shot mode and then you spam on the single shot, you will find your accuracy diverging from that center.
It also, the SMG changes and all these other changes help define what we've always wanted to do as well, which is have a role for each of the weapons that you carry. SMGs are close quarter weapons, so we found, there were some great videos out there of people sniping with those things. Well, obviously that's not the intention, so we have to adjust that stuff. So it helps define our roles for our weapons. And then I think that helps also players define the kind of tactics that they want to use. And going back to the dual primaries again, it allows you to, have that sniper rifle and then run around with the SMG when people come up close to you. So it's just reinforcing our system a little bit more.
One thing that's come up quite a bit is, in addition to the weapons, are things like the party system. What are we going to do outside of the beta once the retail game is out and people are going to be able to play with each other? Are we going to have a party system? Are we going to have lobbies, etc.? We are going to have, I'll let Kevin elaborate on this. We are going to have definitely a party system. When the form that you see it, though, that's been the challenge, right? Is we've made some adjustments to it. But lobbies are not going to make in the game.
Correct.
Could you explain why there aren't going to be lobbies and why we've decided to go with quick matches, party systems, and clan challenges as the overall focus instead of the old school SOCOM?
Well, one of the reasons that we didn't go with the lobbies is because there's often in some of the old games, there's a lot of people sitting around with 1 out of 16 or 16 out of 16. There's just a lot of full lobbies out there. I know it's a way to bring the community together, but we, having the party system and having the clan matches and having this great website, we believe offer those same tools to help bring the community together. But it was just much easier with the architecture that we had for MAG just to put people in matches and have these queues and get these people matched up and playing. I mean, the point for us is to get people in games faster, and the system that we have allows us to do that way faster. And
to clarify, that's what you meant by easier. It's easier for people to play. It wasn't we're just going to move this over for MAG and we're done.
It's
all
just,
finished.
so we have a play now option, and what the play now option does is it'll basically just look for any game that you can fit in, and it throws you into that game. So you can be in a multiplayer game in a matter of minutes after putting in the disc. Shouldn't even say minutes; it's quicker than that. But then you can choose to, then you can start looking at the queues. Do I want to play a standard or a classic or a custom? And it just, you hit those buttons and you're in those games in 30 seconds so it's a much quicker system that's we think is just better.
Talk about the party system. People haven't seen it yet. It's not in the beta.
Right.
It wasn't in the beta patch that we released this morning either. There's something they're not going to see until the game comes out.
Right.
Explain party system for those so they understand what it is.
Yeah, so under online, once you sign in online, there's a couple different options there, which is playing and creating, and one of them is community, and you can dig down into that community and find your clan and your friends. You basically hit a button and it opens up and exposes the people on your friends list, your clan list, and things and other people. But also, as soon as you go online, the screen, the tab to your right has a big button at the top that says form a party. So you just hit a triangle. And that'll also do sort of a subset of what the larger community tab does and has a little less features as far as like leaving the clan or removing people from the clan. But that opens up your friends lists and it shows people so your friends that are online, clan members that are online, and then you just scroll down that list and invite people to your party. So you can do that as soon as you go online. And then once you have that, the party leader then takes those people kind of with them and then he goes into the queues that he wants to play. And then the party just gets pulled into that game with him where there's room for that party. So you can have a party up to 16 people.
A lot of the reasons that we haven't gone into too much detail about the party system up until then, and as we've explained on the forums, but for those of you who might have missed my most recent post on it, is that even though the party system exists and it's working, we ran into a couple of issues with it, technical issues, right before we generated the beta. We would much rather you get a working, absolutely effective party system the first time you experience it than just getting the one that we've had the technical issues with the first time and then we have to fix it after the fact.
Right.
And so it's really just a matter of us making sure that we've addressed everything, and then once that's given the go-ahead, you will see it.
So let's get to some specific questions. One of the big ones out here, I guess, for some of the diehard people is, why is the M4A1 on the Insurgent team and not the Spec Ops?
Yeah, man, what the hell?
Well, the weapon that's paired with that the Spec Ops do get is actually it's a modified version of that. It's an improved, advanced version of the M4.
The latest and greatest.
Yeah, so it kind of is like it's on there. It's just a newer version of it.
A more updated version.
Yep.
Also, our insurgents aren't classic terrorists in the SOCOM sense. There's if you play the single player campaign, I don't want to spoil anything, but
there's a story behind how they're getting their weapons.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at
they're
that.
well funded.
They're they're well funded insurgents.
Out of curiosity, in terms of the beta, when you guys go in there and play it, what is the one tendency of players that you've noticed that you didn't expect? Meaning that when I go home and I play the beta, and the thing that I notice most is that despite the fact that there aren't designated leaders, that there's always that one guy that seems to appear on the team that's becomes a talker. He's the guy that starts directing everyone quite frequently. In almost every game I play, someone just steps up to it, and I'm like you. I don't talk too much. I like to listen to what everyone else is saying so I can take that feedback. But there's always that one guy that just stands out and says, okay, here's what we need to do. Go and do this. And it happens naturally, and people seem, with a few exceptions, to naturally follow whoever this random person is. To me, that was surprising because without a designation, I'm not used to seeing people so easily accept orders, but I was wondering what sort of experiences you guys have had personally that have surprised you.
Well, I've seen the same thing, and again, it just goes back to reinforcing that I think our players, our fans, are more team-based, team-focused, and again, reinforcing the game types just built on that. It's easy for anybody to step up and be like, all right, we got to run to A, and everybody just understands and knows what they have to do to win the game. So that's been really surprising. There's a couple, I get really mad at guys who find hiding spots that I haven't found before. And because, we've been playing these maps for the past 2 or 3 years or whatever, and I'll run right by a corner that nobody in our entire time of working on this game has ever hid in, and some guy will get me like 6 times in a row, and I for some reason I just keep doing it, and then it takes like 4 of us to get that guy out of that spot, and I just get so fed up, and I'm like, I need to go back to Sony and kick that guy out of the game because I get so mad. But yeah, again, it's just you seeing those places that people haven't used before and the tactics. It's awesome.
Well, I agree with you on the somebody taking the leadership role thing. And for the most part, having people working towards taking that objective that they stated, point A or whatever, is better than everybody going after their own, right? Because you end up with increased forces going towards that. And it doesn't matter if it's the best decision to be made at that time, it increases your force going there, and you're more likely to actually take it.
And I've seen a lot of guys also adopt their tactics a little bit more too. Like I was saying, with the sniper rifles, I was playing a game with one guy, and he was on the roof in Port Authority on the insurgent side, and he was behind one of the air conditioning units that are up there. And we specifically put those up there for sniper roosts. And he was just calling out, 2 guys on the bow of the boat, 2 guys in the back. There's one coming down the ramp. Bam, got him. Okay. And he was just like calling out every target that he saw. He wasn't leading anybody, but he was just letting everybody know that guys were like 2 guys are going in the warehouse. 2 guys. It was awesome. It was so nice to hear. And I was like, oh, that's really cool that this guy's. He was a spotter basically, and it was really cool.
So we have the beta ends on what, Tuesday?
April 13th.
Yeah. So we've got a few days left. Is there anything that you guys haven't gotten feedback from, haven't seen yet, that you're looking to catch before the beta ends next week?
And chances are the feedback is definitely out there.
Yeah.
we just have
is.
to go in and find it if you haven't seen it yet.
Well, I don't think there's anything specific, but I think it's more in the way that people deliver their feedback. Just saying like, oh, this weapon's overpowered, that doesn't really tell us that much. The videos that people have been doing are great resources. Like a lot of the SMG changes came out of the video that we saw, and then we started playing it internally, and we're like, oh yeah, okay, we should check that out. But it's the more constructive that you can be with your feedback. I was in this game and I was doing this thing and I shot this guy with like 8 clips and he didn't go down. That's why this weapon feels weak. Instead of just saying this weapon feels weak. Mm-hmm. So we need to have the context that these issues come up in. That's extremely helpful.
From a personal standpoint, we've got 2 maps in the beta. What other maps are you guys looking forward to seeing people play once the game is released on the 19th?
Well, like I mentioned before, Von Hines is one, and Rush Hour is another. And those 2 maps are... I think
Rush Hour was played during the Community Day.
Community Day guys played it, yeah.
So.
That's when it takes place in the destroyed freeway area.
Right. And that and Rush Hour and Von Hines share a similar characteristic where they're both long, which means sniper friendly to me. And those maps, they look beautiful, and there's a lot of work went in on those, and they play really well. They have a lot of defining characteristics about them, so it's easy to say call out locations of where they are, and yeah, like I said, one group got to play at PAX and they really liked it, so I was like, oh, okay, awesome. I want the rest of the community to check it out and see. The other one is Cesspool, which we did the fly through, and that one that was one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but I think that was one of the earliest ones. It was like the 2nd or 3rd map that we built, and from its original inception, it hasn't changed that much because it's always played well. There's 3 distinct paths right down the middle of the map, which creates these pockets of fighting that always seem to gravitate towards these. There's one area that we call the gas station that's always in contention. There's the radar tower in the middle that's always in contention, and then the water side. They've always been there. They've always created different experiences within the map. Like there's some long sight lines that you can cover with sniper rifles, but there's a lot of little nooks and crannies that create great close quarter battle stuff. And then some great areas for assault rifles, so you have that sort of medium distance that you want to go in. So that's one of the maps I'm looking forward to. Like I said, it's always been a blast to play that map. So.
And also some pretty great spots on that for placing some mines. Like I've had some great experiences with some of the one-way ramps of placing them right at the bottom of that, getting people as soon as they run over them.
Yeah.
What maps are you looking forward for people playing in the retail version?
So for me, it'd probably be Collision, which is kind of a smaller, closer quarters junkyard map that gets a much closer combat.
Which we played at PAX.
Yep, that was at PAX. And Sacrifice is another one. It's a jungle ruins type map that looks amazing. Set on it's got a cliff on one side and then the water out there, and a lot of variation in the heights, elevation, and lower elevations.
That map to me sort of feels like a once removed cousin of Abandoned.
We had some comments when we were at PAX about that it looked kind of similar.
Now, one thing that, before we go, because we're almost out of time, but before we go, one thing, Ryan, that you just finished directly altering was the camera, which is probably the most talked about, biggest, and most obvious change in our beta patch, and which will be in the retail patch when it comes out. And that's we've pulled the camera out. we've done two things. We've pulled the camera out so that the point on your character where you can no longer see him is a little bit further out. And then also we've improved the field of distance.
Or field of view.
Field of view. Yeah. So explain those two things. Explain what they are, what they mean, how they've improved the experience, and how they've been a direct relation to community requests.
So we pulled the camera back a little bit. That kind of increases some of that, but the most of the work was done in the field of view. And what that does is that reduces the feeling of it being claustrophobic. It lets you see more to the sides of you, right around you. So if somebody is sneaking up 90 degrees to you, it's easier for you to catch that, as well as for combat with guys right up next to you.
Yeah, it makes it feel a little better when you're with a bunch of friends and in tight spaces. That field of view opens up a lot more. It's hard to explain over this audio, when a visual change, but when you see it, you'll know the difference.
Yeah, the good news is people can play it now. They're experiencing it now, and they're already giving their feedback on it, I'm sure. One thing that I think, though, that really needs to be pointed out about the camera is that we didn't go as far back, because some of the suggestions were bring it as far back as the kill cam when you're dead and you're waiting to either to respawn.
The spectator cam.
The spectator, yeah. So could you talk about why we didn't go that far back?
Well, there are other issues that come up with pulling it back. Whenever you pull the camera physically back, you end up with more collisions with objects that are behind you. The FOV gets a lot of the visibility that I think people were looking for without actually moving the camera back.
When we were experimenting with the distance, one of the things that was apparent was the visibility on the enemies. When you start pulling it back, they become smaller and harder to see as well. So there's a give and take that you have to go there. And because we have great sniper rifles and some long distance assault rifles, there's some distances that you want to be wary of. And once you pull that back, your enemies are really small and they're hard to hit. So we didn't want to sacrifice that. So that's one of the reasons we didn't bring it as far back as we did.
I think, though, that after having seen the changes and all this kind of stuff, and I think that a lot of the people are going to be very happy with the changes to it. It's maybe like you were saying, maybe it's not as far back as people wanted, but the field of view change, I think, has given them exactly what they're looking for in terms of visibility and awareness and all of these things. And I think it's the ultimate culmination of what everybody wanted and what's best for the game. I think everybody's gonna be happy with it,
right? And that came out a lot of looking at the feedback. People say pull the camera back, but it's like, okay, well, why do you want us to? What do you want to achieve by pulling the character back? What are you not seeing that you're not getting? And looking at all that data and breaking it down, it was like, all right, what they're actually talking about is the field of view. So again, you'll see it or are seeing it now, but yeah, it's a lot better.
And with that, we're out of time. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us.
Thank you.
Our next episode is the launch episode of Zipline, which will appear on April 22nd, just a few days after.
Well, launch episode of SOCOM 4. Zipline launched 34 episodes ago.
That's right. The launch, it's the launch episode of Zipline, though.
Wait, who's going to be on that?
Yeah, which is what I said.
You have confirmed guests yet?
It's going to be an all-star cast with at least Chris and I.
2 stars at least.
We're planning on a couple returning guests, but we'll see what the schedules allow.
When do I get my special green room card? How many appearances do I have?
You need 13.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, the green room is over there. You got to put a quarter in the machine, then you get. Right. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, man.
As always, if you want to send us questions, you can write to zipline@zipperint.com, and you can follow us on your favorite social networks such as Twitter and Facebook. If you go to twitter.com/zipper, or on Facebook, search for Zipper Interactive, or just simply SOCOM.
Well, that's it then. Thanks.
Thank you.
See you next
Thanks
time.
for having us.
If you guys do have any questions, though, let us know.
Yep.
And we appreciate your time. Adios.
See you.
Speed the same. Ciao.